You're working just the way you always have, maybe even better. You're more experienced, handling tasks with ease. Then it starts. Your opinion's no longer relevant. You're always overqualified. Suddenly, you're unemployable. This isn't part of aging, it's ageism. Everyone deserves to age without limits. Let's make it a reality. Ageism. Notice it, challenge it, change it. Search Age Without Limits.
This week I'm chatting with Valerie Troy. She's an Irish comedy writing accountant who's writing comedy about reinvention as you age. She says that there's an appetite out there for strong, witty voices of older women in comedy. She says that there's not enough entertainment directed at women in their 50s, 60s and beyond. So she, along with her comedy writing partners, are trying to change that. But before we hear from her, please follow the podcast, rate it, and you can even share it with your friends. OK, let's hear our conversation now with Valerie. Welcome to Retirement Rebel Life After 60. I'm your host, Siobhan Daniels. Join me on a journey to meet inspiring rebels who've redefined retirement. Together, we'll explore new passions, triumphs over challenges, and discover the vibrant possibilities of life after 60. This is about living boldly, not just ageing. So, are you ready to rebel? Last week, I loved chatting with Jane Ashley, who says she's felt rebellious since school, and following family bereavements, she's grabbed every moment to embrace life, skydiving, running marathons, and solo travel. If you missed it, it's available on all podcast platforms and also on my website, retirementrebel.co.uk. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on the podcast, Val.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to. I talk for Ireland, talk all day. So if there's one thing I'm good at, it's talking. So, let's brace ourselves.
First of all, just sort of tell me a little bit about your life growing up in Dublin. What was it like? Was it full of comedy then? Was it, what was the role of women? How was your life in Dublin growing up?
Well, I suppose I live in Dublin now, but I actually grew up in the west of Ireland altogether. So, but at this stage, I've lived in Dublin more often than not. I suppose I left the west of Ireland when I was about 17 to go to college and then on to Dublin, and I've pretty much lived here the whole time. I suppose I would always have been considered, witty as opposed to telling jokes. Like if someone said, if I'll tell a joke, I'd be like, I don't think I know any. What I always say, we don't tell jokes, myself and my comedy writing partner, we tell stories. So it's all about stories kind of grounded in our reality. And I suppose growing up, I went to a convent school, sort of in Catholic Ireland convent school, and I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of good material there. And I'm also the youngest of 3 siblings. So I think just being the youngest gives you a great freedom. I think you get to do things your older siblings have done at a much younger age. So you just get out of the traps a lot quicker. And I think a lot of street smarts come with being younger. And I suppose just being a fast talker and fast thinker, and I suppose being the youngest, maybe you scrap a little bit more and fight to be heard. And I think it all kind of sort of grew up on that. But I always enjoyed laughing and finding the funny things in the ordinary. So in the same way sort of Michael McIntyre does, if people enjoy his kind of comedy, he takes the most ordinary things and somehow makes them really funny. And I think the joy of that is that you can find a little laugh anywhere when you're out and about. And it's just about taking all of those little bits and pieces from our lived experience. And now that I am 50, I've banked 5 decades of life experience and trying to tell those hopefully relatable, funny stories. And obviously I'm a woman, so they'd be more relatable to women. And I do find that I probably attracted to and find female comedians really quite funny, and that's, I suppose, is where I automatically lean to. Not excluding men in any way, shape or form. I absolutely adore Michael McIntyre.
That observational sense of humour is incredible, really. I love that more than, like you say, just telling the pat jokes one after the other. And myself, I went to a convent school, so I know exactly what you mean about there's a great pool there for humour and humorous stories.
There really is. And I suppose, like, all credit to the nuns. I know religious orders get an awful lot of stick, but I have to say, I wasn't educated exclusively by nuns, but it was a Catholic ethos convent education school. And like, they were phenomenal women, not because they were nuns, it's because they were phenomenal women and they happened to be nuns. And they were great educators and we got a great education. But I suppose as time rolls on and I suppose as Ireland has changed, and I suppose back in the day, I think I would have been quite conservative. And I think usually as you get older, you probably tend to get more conservative. But I think I'm the opposite. The older I get, the more liberal I get. And so now liberal me can look back at sort of conservative education and the thoughts and preachings of the nuns back in the day and go, do you know what, that was a little bit odd. You know, I'm not alone. I think a lot of people, as you say, have been grounded in this sort of traditional education. And in my case, by the nuns. So I suppose that's what I talk about. There's loads of fodder there to talk about. It's brilliant.
Now, you didn't follow the comedic route initially. You trained to be an accountant. What took you down that path?
Yeah, that's right. I suppose I always loved telling stories one way or the other. And I suppose if I reflect back now, I think in truth, I love words more than I love numbers. But actually, numbers can tell a story too. And, you know, as tempting as it might be to have a career in the creative, you can tell a story through numbers. You know, you absolutely can. And I suppose that's what accounting does. So I was an accountant for the guts of 20 years and I absolutely loved it. And as I always say, debits and credits are great, but there's zero crack. But having said that, I worked with really funny people over the years. And I've always found that business meetings are kind of quite sterile and serious and there's very few opportunities for fun. And I would always regularly find myself in meetings where something funny would pop into my head and I just wouldn't say it necessarily. And you kind of, I suppose, lose it a little bit, but always surrounded by very talented, capable and funny people. So, you know, outside the meeting, we always had great crack. And, you know, when I finished college, I went straight into KPMG to train there. And it's like an extension of your college years. Now you're still studying and you're working, but you're also getting paid. So it's like you're living your best life in your 20s. And it was really good fun and I really enjoyed that. So I did that for 20 years. But I always say, you know, sometimes when you do things for a really long time, you wonder, am I doing it too long? And for me, that moment came, it was years ago. It was very early in January. And instead of wishing somebody a happy new year, I accidentally wished them a happy year end. I thought, oh, I've been doing this too long now. It's time to move on. You know?
Is that when comedy came on your radar?
You know, the funny thing is, it probably isn't. I suppose I've always been able to keep myself entertained and be quite witty. As I say, not in telling jokes, but maybe, I don't know if it's an Irish thing. Like, I think we have a good turn of phrase sometimes too. And we're quite self-deprecating. And I suppose as a family here with my husband and 3 teenagers, we're quite sort of nicely sarcastic, which can be really entertaining. Like, if that's your thing, it doesn't entertain everybody. But, you know, we always have a good sense of fun here in the house too. And we slag each other and roast each other relentlessly, which is great. But I suppose during COVID, like lots of things, you know, at that stage, I'd finished work a couple of years. I finished working, give or take, about 10 years ago. At the time, my daughter was 5 and they're all my kids are in the teens now. And I began to have a little think about what would I like to do or how would I like to spend my time. And kind of the first thing I did is sort of, I looked at what I had. You know, I thought I have time, I have flexibility. My kids are growing up now. So, you know, that their needs from when they were younger as young children had kind of changed and they were much more independent, albeit not completely independent. I had a really good laptop. I can type really quickly. And as I always say, the voices in my head told lots of funny stories. So I thought, you know what, I'd really like to write. Like back in the day, you know, I used to write, when I was in university, write letters to my aunties and my friends who were in different cities and universities. And I just loved it. And I always wrote the way I spoke and it was always very free-flowing. It wasn't like an English essay. It was always very relaxed and entertaining. And I remember years ago, one of my aunties told me that she loved my letters and she kept them and she gave them to some of my other aunties. And I thought, oh my God, that's really nice. But I suppose when life kicks in and you have to pay the bills and you have family and work, like accounting was really the way through to pay the bills. Whereas when I'd given that up, it was a real opportunity and freedom to try something different. And I'd never really written nonfiction before. I didn't know whether I could or not, or to be honest, it never really occurred to me whether I could or not. And I did an online advanced writing course and a small little element of it was fiction. I was scratching my head going, what am I going to do here? But it was like a light switched and it's like a pathway opened up in my mind. And once I started, off it went.
I think for a lot of women, it's when the children have grown up. Like you said, you were thinking you used to like something years before and now you revisit it because you've got the space, the headspace to do it. Your children have grown up. And I think a lot of women who I'm speaking to on this podcast and who are listening to this podcast, that's the stage that they're at in their lives. When you get into your 50s, heading for 60 and beyond, it's sort of what's it all about? What do I really want to do? And it sounds to me like you were revisiting something that actually that little voice in you had always really wanted to do.
Yes, I think that's one of the things. Myself and my comedy pals, my comedy writer pal, Orla Doherty, and I know a former guest in your podcast, Barbara Scully, we did some events this summer at some book festivals called the Madonna Effect, because Madonna has reinvented herself very effectively over the decades. So it's the Madonna Effect, reinvention as you age. And one of the questions we asked ourselves when we were kind of workshopping that project was, is it really reinvention? Or as you say, is it revisiting maybe something that you had forgotten back in the day? And, Barbara Scully would be a great advocate of the power and freedoms of older women. And I think that unlocks itself. And that was my experience too, when my kids were older and our needs as a family changed. And I began to think about what would I like to do. But I also am really grateful to be at home with the kids. Like, this is where I want to be. So whatever I chose would have to work around that too, so that we'd have the flexibility for me to do what I liked, but also to be here and to be available and to be present in the house. Because, with 5 of us in the house, like, it's almost like a little industry or a little job in itself to keep a household of 5 people going. And I'm very grateful that I can do all of that together. And because I'm writing comedy, I'm literally sitting at my laptop making myself laugh. So as far as I'm concerned, it might be one of the best jobs in the world. And it's certainly better cracked than deficit credits.
How important do you think it is to write positive comedy about women? Because through the years, there's a lot of comedy that has just fed into that stereotype of what women are like, and particularly older women and women who are going through the menopause. How important is it for you when you're writing your comedy to try and readdress that balance?
Well, I think as a person, I'm generally an optimistic person rather than a pessimistic one. So I would try and naturally find the sunny side up in things. And I think that, like, there's a whole range of comedy. Comedy is very subjective. Not everybody enjoys the same thing. I certainly don't enjoy comedy where people are taking a swipe at sections of society, whether it's being ageist or misogynistic or racist or homophobic. I don't think it's acceptable to take a swipe as your job, or if you're selling a ticket to a show, to take money from people and then take a swipe at people in society. I don't think we would send our children into school and expect teachers to take a swipe at a section of society, or go to a supermarket and expect people there to do the same. So for me, it's not acceptable in comedy either. And I think you're moving beyond comedy into being confrontational or offensive for the sake of it. So that's not comedy that I would enjoy, and that's not anything I would aspire to. And I suppose because I am a woman in my early 50s, I do talk about what's present for me and what's relevant for me. So I suppose naturally that is what I talk about. I talk about parenting and kids and being an older woman. But I think it's from the point of view of having a broad bank of 5 decades of life experience. It's not just talking about older women for the sake of it. And I think men talk about men issues and women talk about women issues, but I think women get a lot more stick from it. And myself and my comedy writing pal, Orla Doherty, were both the Irish producers for Funny Women, which was an organisation set up in the UK by Lynn Parker about 22 years ago. And the purpose of it was to bring women into what was then a very male-dominated industry. And it's all about sort of inclusivity and including women in a very supportive way. Now, some people would say, well, you're excluding men. Well, we're not excluding men. We're including everybody. We're inviting men to come to our shows. And what I found is, it's less so in the UK, but more so in Ireland. When we run a Funny Women show, easily 95% of our audience are women. And I'm still a little bit baffled as to why men don't come to all female shows. Now, I have checked with my peers in the UK, and it's not quite a 50-50 balance. It's more 60-40, maybe 70-30 women. And what I find is women and men will go to male comedians, whereas it's not necessarily the opposite. It's mostly women who go to female comedians. And at first I was a little bit affronted about it. And now I'm like, really unapologetic. Like, if we can create a really good night out for women and chat about things that women find interesting and entertaining and are relevant in their lives, then 100% I'm all for it. So now we've kind of spun a little bit and we're, I suppose, actively targeting women. And what myself and Orla want to do all the time is we want to laugh and we want to find an audience of people who will find us funny. Not everybody will find us funny, and that's absolutely okay. And we just want to have a great night out for your sisters, your girlfriends, your aunties, your mom, and just let's have a laugh about the things that we all find in common in a really uplifting and positive way, not in a negative way.
That's what I love, the uplifting and positive way, because I think you're finding your tribe and women supporting women. And again, that's what this platform's about. That's what I'm all about. That's, I don't want women to be broken and to feel lost in society. And I think when you share those anecdotes, you share those funny stories of what we're all going through, it just helps. It helps us all. And to do it through comedy is really strong. You've also written a drama, haven't you? Co-written a drama called, what was it called? Menopause. What was that about?
Yes, menopause. Yes, so myself and Orla, we co-wrote. We wondered when we started our writing journey. We both met in an online writing group during COVID called Writers Inc. And it's a community of people who share our objectives. We're all new to writing, and we're all mostly writing novels. But myself and Orla, we both write comedy. We were very naturally drawn to each other, and we wondered if we could write a sitcom. And we said, you know what? Why don't we just try and write one? So we wrote one called Menopause, and it's about a 51-year-old divorcee, a lady who's going back to the dating scene, and she's pressing pause on dating men and dating women instead. So it's a comedy drama, and it's really uplifting, and it's just having a laugh. And my comedy co-writer is part of the LGBTQ community, and we're like, relationships are relationships. So find somebody who you love and you want to spend your time with and just have at it. And it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. It just kind of ask those questions and challenge those ideas. And ultimately, like, be yourself and knock yourself out. And, don't be exercised so much by how other people live your lives. Just knock yourself out and live your own life and just have some fun. And again, it was about myself and Orla having a laugh, having fun. And honestly, every time I read it, like, I put it away for a few months and I pull it out. We just have another little giggle again. And it's just like, it's cheeky and it's a little bit out there and it's just fun. And it's also like, I'm of the view, maybe less so now, but I think we still have a long way to go, that there isn't necessarily a lot of entertainment directed at, say, women over 50s or over 60. Well, everything in that area and beyond. And like, it's a real challenge. And I had an interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago with somebody in the industry about the screenplay. And she was making the point that the gatekeepers in the industry are either men or younger women,
Yes,
who haven't yet experienced that kind of older life experience. And so in a way, it'll be a challenge to really get it off the ground and get it into production. But we submitted it to a screenwriting competition in the UK, Female Pilot Club, and we got longlisted there, and we were absolutely delighted with ourselves, and we put more time and effort into it to make it as good and as funny as it can be. So at the moment it's on submission in the UK and Ireland, and hopefully we'll bring it to life. But because I suppose we're over 50s and its target market is women mostly in that category as well, that in itself will be a little bit challenging. But we're like, let's do it. Let's go. Let's have that challenge and have those conversations to see if we can bring this fun show to life to make people laugh.
but this is what I'm all about, getting it out there, how we want to be seen and heard when we're in our 50s and when we're in our 60s and beyond. And I kept hearing people talking about 50 and beyond or 55 plus, and that was it. You never heard any other ages. It was like we've fallen off the cliff edge, which is why I then felt so incensed. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to start my podcast. I want a platform where we can talk about it, because like you say, a lot of the gatekeepers are younger people. I've been involved in helping people with campaigns about aging, and I've stressed that we really do need to talk about older women, these issues, and over 50, over 60. And I just seem to get blocked. It's like we can say up to 50 and then it kind of disappears. They don't want to know. And we have a sense of humour in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond. And it needs to be reflected. And I hope you do get it out there.
Yes, I hope so. And I suppose one of the things that attracted, we've had some conversations with production companies, and one of the things that attracted them to it is that we have generations, 50s, 60s, and sort of grandparents, that it's really strong voices of older women in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I think our eldest character is approaching 90. And they're all witty and sharp and independent and strong-minded. And like, the whole ensemble cast is just really good fun. And I think it might be quite groundbreaking in a way if we could bring it to life and entertain a group of people who, what I can see, now I don't feel this way, but a lot of those people would say they feel like invisible women. And, I love Marion Keyes, the author, and in the latest round of PR for her book, My Favourite Mistake, which is absolutely adored, she talks about feeling like an invisible woman quite a lot. And I think it's great to have those conversations out there. And like, we're a very large section of society. We are probably independently wealthy with disposable income, with a lot of free time on our hands. And I think we're hungry for material that will entertain us, whether it's a novel or a TV show or a piece of theatre or whatever else. Like, there's a really strong appetite from that. And what we found this summer at the book festival events is that the appetite for our message for reinvention as you age. Like our last event at the Dalkey Book Festival, which is one of the biggest, best renowned book festivals, long-running book festivals in Ireland, that event was sold out. And what stunned us, there were 3 ladies who drove from Fermanagh to Dublin, not known to any of us, just for our event. And after the event, they drove back to Fermanagh. And I was like, what attracted these people to the show? And I think it was this notion of reinvention as you age, that there are endless possibilities, and just to maybe encourage people to have, and it doesn't have to be anything big. I mean, for instance, I've always wanted to play the piano and I never got around to it. And the thing is, if my children wanted to play the piano when they're young, as it turns out they don't, but if they did, I would have made it happen. And yet now, it's only about 6 or 7 weeks ago, I took my first piano lessons. So I was like, well, why is it taking me so long? But that's a little thing that I want to do. For me, I have no big aspirations to do exams, to perform anywhere. I just love music. I've always wanted to do it. I'm like, well, let's go, let's do it. So if that inspires people to go see swimming, or it doesn't have to be anything that costs money, or maybe start reading when you haven't read before, play an instrument, or hike, or hill walk, or travel. If you have an itch to do something, just give it a go and do it. Like, nothing bad will happen from not doing it. But wouldn't it be awful to regret it? Because as we get older, our health and fitness might deteriorate over time, and we might not have opportunities. And also, as we get older, as say I'm in my early 50s, my mum is 87. So we also have a responsibility to care for aging parents, which now, thankfully, she's very healthy and well, but that's not always the case for a lot of people. So there might be a really small window where you have an opportunity to press go on these things and, prioritize your own ambitions and desires almost in line with your kids, if not ahead of them sometimes. None of my kids' ambitions have suffered because I've tried to do something new, and I think that's important.
But I think there's still an awful lot of women out there who have that big feeling of guilt if they just focus on themselves and think, what do I want? Because they've given up an awful lot to be mothers, which they want to do. I did that for my daughter. I was a single mum for years. But once I got the chance, once she'd grown up, flown the nest, and I was ready for retirement, all bets were off. I got rid of my home, all my possessions, bought my motorhome, hit the road. And for the last 5 years, I've been having the most incredible adventures and living life how I want to live it. So everything you've just said there is like music to my ears. It doesn't have to be as crazy as me giving up your home and everything, but playing the piano, going for walks if you didn't. One thing I do is lie down and look at the clouds, because I used to do that as a kid and love it. And now I revisit it and I do it. And I just think one thing I love about you is your comedy allows women to get together, to be able to discuss the kind of things that they like to do and they might have done. And that might just fan a flame or inspire them to go and revisit something.
Yes, I think so. And I suppose we were so inspired by the response to the book festival event, which was it was a 45-minute, I suppose, it wasn't a comedy panel, but it was very entertaining, and a Q&A session afterwards. And the engagement for it was so high, and the enthusiasm of it was so high, that we've now expanded that into a show, which we will have our first sort of work in progress show coming up in early October. And it's myself and Barbara Scully and Orla Doherty. And I'm the youngest, I'm 50, Orla's 53, and Barbara's in her early 60s. And we're just going to have a laugh. It's going to be comedy. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be uplifting. And we're still going to have the panel show as well, and have it as maybe as interactive as we can, and just get people's views about what they might like to do, and maybe get people a little bit giddy and a little bit excited, and just come out for a really good night of good, clean fun. Like, that sounds maybe a little bit dull, and maybe it's a little bit cheeky sometimes. And, we just have such a laugh. And I think, if you take any group of women who say, go out for a dinner or go out for a couple of drinks, if it's a group of women on their own, that would be one type of conversation. If you add a male partner into it, the dynamic in the conversation will change. And I think girlfriends have their most honest conversations when they're in a little group together. And if we can expand that into a show that's really uplifting and really good fun, and we're having fun and everybody's just having fun, that's just what we want to try and do. And just engage and recognize and see this audience of people and try to cater for what it is that will entertain them and let everybody have a really good night out.
I mean, you entertain them with the comedy, but do you think you can actually help break these negative stereotypes about what it is to age and what it is to go through the menopause and what it is to be old? Because once you say the word old, the kind of negative connotations come flooding in, and comedy can show the vibrancy of actual aging, can't it?
Yes, and I think the way we've chosen to do that is to practice what we preach. I mean, Orla and I know Barbara Scully about a year and a half, and the reason we know her is through her book Wise Up, and it's all about the power and wisdom of older women and unlocking these opportunities as the freedoms that come along with coming of age. And we're like, well, let's just practice what we preach and let's just do that. And I suppose I would consider myself a very ordinary person. I went to school, I went to college, I was an accountant, I had married, had 3 kids. I'm as straightforward as you'll ever get. And yet someone like me pivoted to do something so completely out of bounds, like have a crack at comedy. I made my stand-up comedy debut just over a year ago. I went into a comedy club in the city centre in Dublin. I rehearsed my set. I thought, you know what, whatever happens, these words are going to come out of my mouth. And I thought, you know, the worst thing that could happen is that my set could be awful. But then I thought, you know what, that could be funny too. And in the fullness of time, I'll be in the nursing home going, do you remember the time I tried stand-up comedy in 2023 and it went awful? But genuinely, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. The easiest thing to do would be not to do that gig, to stay at home that night. But I made a commitment to the MC that night that I was going to show up. And I was like, you know what, let's do it. Let's go. The only way I will know if this is going to work or not is going to do it. And I think when you face the fear was it might not be funny, it could be awful. And I thought, well, that's survivable. And if you have a little think about the outcomes, and if the worst case scenario is survivable, then just do it. And I think I would rather do it and it be awful than never do it and go, oh, I always wondered if I could do stand-up comedy, or I thought about it for a while, but I never actually did it. Like, just dip your toe in the water. And if you can surround yourself with a community of people who share your values and your ideas and are a little bit risky and a little bit, you know, encouraging and encourage you to put yourself out there, then I think that's a really good thing. And I think the other thing for me is I wasn't looking for permission to try it. I wasn't looking for permission to do stand-up comedy. I wasn't looking for anyone's approval. I 100% did it for myself. And I made a little bit of time and I put a lot of effort into it and I practiced it and I just made it happen. And that has set off this crazy sequence of events of producing comedy shows. And we've had Deirdre O'Kane and Emma Dorn, and we've had serious headliners at our shows, which are 95% women, and they are mostly women over 35, over 40, packed out in a room of 250 people having a laugh. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that those shows would never have happened if we didn't put the effort into them to make them happen. And I think we've entertained lots of women. And as an accountant, I love KPIs. And if one of our KPIs for comedy is that we call it the Wet Your Knickers Index, we just want you to wet your knickers laughing at our show. And I think that's a really good objective. And like, there's so many heavy news stories in the cycle right now. Is it not the best way to spend an evening to have a laugh? And I think people who've come to our shows aren't necessarily regular comedy goers. I think people have a repertoire of maybe going out for dinner or going to the cinema or going for drinks, not necessarily going to a comedy night. And in Dublin, and I'm sure in cities all over the UK and Ireland as well, there's free comedy, there's outstanding comedy, there's amazing comedy gigs 7 nights a week. And maybe that's something you could try and just go out for a night and have a good laugh and see how you feel, because I think it's good for your physical health, your mental health, and just have fun for a night. I can't advocate it enough for so many reasons.
I just love that Wet Your Knickers Index.
Absolutely. On a scale of 1 to 10, and look, menopausal women, we might be prone to a little leakage every now and again anyway, but if it's from laughter, then it's all good as far as I'm concerned, you know?
Were you petrified then when you actually took to the stage, when you were giving your first comedy sketch?
Yeah, I wouldn't say petrified, because I would say I had kind of a nervous excitement because it was something that I really, really wanted to do. And I suppose maybe because I'm an accountant, I'm inclined to analyse things. And I thought, well, you know, through work, I would have done a lot of public speaking. So I had no fear at all of the public speaking aspect. I was 49 at the time, so I suppose the brain fog hadn't kicked in. So I thought, I'm going to remember it all. It's just 10 minutes. And I had it set up so that one thing kind of led to another. So I was very confident that I wouldn't forget my bits and pieces. So really the big risk was it funny or not? And so my threshold for funny is if I make myself laugh. Now I know it's an audience of one, but I just think my sense of humour isn't so obscure that there aren't people who share it. And I thought there has to be people who share that sense of humour. And, you know, it's about comic timing and delivery and confidence. And I was 100%, I was all in. I was like, this is going to happen no matter what. And once I got the first laugh straight away, I just knew it would be fine. I knew I would get to the end. In the end, I ran over time a little bit, and I was buzzing for days. The gig was on a Wednesday night, and it was maybe Friday lunchtime before I got down off this buzz that I had never experienced before. because I'd never performed, I'd never sung, I'd never done theatre. I'm not an actor. It was a real first for me. So it was a huge thing. And I just felt really, really proud of myself that I gave it a go. But I was also supported by people who said, that you're funny, you should do it, give it a go. No one said, oh my God, that's the worst idea you've ever had. And you know what? Even if somebody did, I think I'm so stubborn that would have exercised me even more to get it done. So it was very much a me project. It didn't cost anything. It just took some of my time to go into town, do my thing and come home. And it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I think part of the fact that I'm 50 now. I was an accountant, mom of 3 teenagers, and now I'm a comedian. Like, just even saying that kind of blows people's minds a little bit. So I love that too. So it's a real practice what you preach thing. And genuinely, if I can do it, I'm the most ordinary person in the world. Anybody can give whatever their little thing is, as you say, if it's looking at the clouds, going for a walk, having a little sea swim. I met a woman a couple of weeks ago on a beach. She was a couple of weeks off retirement and she'd just come out of a sea swim and she'd only learned to swim, let alone sea swim, in the previous 6 months. And I was like, go you, like, why not? Let's do it. Let's go. Just do it.
I'm just going to interrupt for a moment to shamelessly plug my book, Retirement Rebel. It's published by Vertebrate Publishers, and it's my honest account of feeling broken in my 50s and finding my happy place in my mid-60s. I got rid of my home and possessions and hit the road in my motorhome for a roller coaster ride along life's adventures. I want it to help younger women not to fear aging and older women to grab life and run with it. You can purchase a copy in most bookstores and on Amazon. Right, now back to the conversation. I mean, you're 50 and this platform really is, I set it up for life after 60. One of the reasons I wanted you on, though, is because of the comedy you do predominantly for older women and the menopause and approaching that period of your life. How important is it, do you think, to have female comedians, female representation for older women in the comedy circuit? Because women still aren't a great percentage of comedians, are they?
No, they're really not. And I suppose that's what organisations like Funny Women are inclined to do. And I suppose the unofficial matron, if you like, of Funny Women is Jo Brand. And she would have been a trailblazer in her day. When she started out in the comedy circuit in the UK, there would have been very few comedians. And I suppose Jo's equivalent maybe here in Ireland is Deirdre O'Kane, who's been on the circuit maybe for 25 years. She took a break when her children were young and she's back and she's bigger than ever and she tours Ireland and the UK and whatever else. So I think it is really important to have older women. But I suppose it's also the nature of the industry as well. It is late night entertainment. And if I was in my 40s when my children were younger, it wouldn't have been really practical option for me because you're heading into town at 8 p.m. at night, maybe to do a 10 or 15 minute set. And because I love comedy, I stick around and enjoy the show, which not necessarily everybody does or would have the time to. So you're coming back home maybe 11:30 or 12. And, some of my peers who have young children, like they're kind of buzzing then till 2 or 3 in the morning. And then that has an impact on you for the next day. So stand-up comedy isn't necessarily an ideal fix for younger women with families. So the very young do it. And I think people revisit it when they're older. And, in my case, I visited for the first time when I'm older. But I think because there aren't a lot of older women in the circuit, there are certainly older men on the circuit. And comedians in the UK tour here all the time too, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's very accessible to get really high standard comedy. But the proportion of women is growing, but it's still not 50-50. And the proportion of older women within that subset is even smaller still. So we're just going to try and fly the flag and have some fun and attract that audience and find that audience and share our message with them and say, look, we're out here, we're doing this show. Come along, have a listen, see what you think, bring your girlfriends. The worst that will happen is that you will wet your knickers laughing.
One of the things that I'm trying to do with this podcast and with this platform is to empower women. And exactly what you're doing, you're going out there and just by example, showing women, do you know what? You could get up, you could do this. You could pivot your life and become a comedian, particularly older women. I really want to see more older women on the comedy circuit because when you do have those girls' nights out and you sit with all your friends and we've got all our life experiences, it's hilarious. I have the best time I have getting together with my girlfriends.
It's hilarious and it's uplifting. And I think we uplift each other. And the key piece that's missing is A, older women being on stage, and B, older women stepping out of their zone and going, you know what, let's have a night out. Let's just have a night out together. Let's go to comedy for a change. Let's do something different. Let's go to comedy on a Monday night or whatever night of the week it is. And it's just making that little change. But, one of the book festival events we did, there was about 70 people at it. There was one man in the event. There was one man there. And we all laughed our heads off, including him. Why aren't men there? Doesn't matter. Let's have a girls only night out for older women, because we don't think twice about a girls' night out when we're young.
No.
We don't think twice about it, but yeah, we sort of do think twice about it. And, I won't go out without my partner. Well, why not? Like, go out with your girlfriends. Just mix it up a bit and have a bit of a laugh. So, it's a series of little steps and a series of little changes that have to happen in our thinking, in our mindset, in our openness to try something new. And there's trying something new, like me doing stand-up comedy the first time, but there's also trying something new about me buying a ticket to a comedy show for the first time. And it's such good fun. Honestly, it really is. And I think as a craft, comedy is underestimated, it's undervalued, and it is a real craft. Like, now that I've know how difficult it is to write it, to retain it, to perform it. People just think, well, you just show up on stage, it's you and your microphone, you say your bit, you go off. It's easy. Like, if you think it's easy, try it. So it's a whole combination of things to get it off the ground and to make it work, and for there to be a bit of buy-in and for it to grow.
It takes a lot of confidence to make that initial step, though, to get up on the stage. And I suppose for older women, it's at a time when they're feeling voiceless, and maybe they are going through the menopause, maybe they are feeling anxious. So it's an even bigger ask to get them to really find that strength to be able to get up and do something that they probably really want to do.
It is. And this is maybe a slight little pivot, but it'll just give you an example. A couple of months ago, I met a colleague of mine that I worked with back in the day in KPMG, and she's now an audit partner in one of the professional services firms. And she's talking about recruitment, and she's saying it's actually not that difficult to recruit people into the industry, but it is quite difficult to retain people. And I was making the point that, why not target people like me in our early 50s? Like, debits and credits don't expire. I'm as good an accountant as I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I'm not going on maternity leave. My children are older. I have banked life experience as well as professional experience. Why not target people like me and bring them back into the industry? And her answer floored me. She said, actually, we've tried, but what we found is that older women's confidence is really low.
So build it up.
And that's a whole combination of things.
We need to build it up in society.
Exactly. So how do we build it up? We need to uplift each other. We need to build it up. We need to recognize that, my peers are accountants, and, there's pharmacists, there's marketing people out there, there's PR people, there's banking people with banking expertise, all in our age group that have incredible professional expertise. Imagine if we could unlock some of that now in the marketplace. If it suits people, if it suits their lives, if it suits their ambitions. So lack of confidence shouldn't be the barrier to it. Like, why don't we feel confident? Is it because we've been homemakers for so long, that we've been the port of call for children? We've put everybody's needs ahead of ours. We've had the responsibility to run a household, which is, I suppose, thankless. It's, you don't get paid for it. And do all of those little steps along the way over a decade or more just chip away at our confidence. And I think, only we can give ourselves confidence, but we can also be supported by people. I'm not looking for people to throw obstacles in my way or prevent me from doing things, but support really does help, and support and encouragement really does help. And that's why podcasts like this that hope to support, entertain, uplift, maybe ignite a spark to change people's outlook can be really, really positive.
And that's what I'm trying to do, find that community so we do support one another. But I think you were saying there that women are nervous to go back into the workforce. I think we need to look at how we treat older people in the workforce. I think that's the elephant in the room. We need to stop ageism, stop this bullying of the older person, really recognise the value that they've got to bring to the workplace. And again, comedy can often play its part in denigrating older people in the workplace, how their ability to deal with technology or new things being implemented in the workplace. So I think as a society, we just need to rethink the way we behave with older people, because they've got so much more to bring.
Absolutely. But I think it starts with recruitment. I really do. And I think, because world is so global and people can travel so freely now, the notion of this job for life just isn't a thing anymore. And I think you could recruit, if you had two accountants, let's say one was 29 and one was 49, in all likelihood, I think the 29-year-old may get recruited first. But which of the two of those, the 29-year-old or the 49-year-old, might relocate to Australia, is more likely to relocate to Australia? It's probably the 29-year-old. So if we're settled here, I think recruitment is the first barrier. I really do. Like, to get past the interview stage, and if there is a corporation which has a really young culture, to be open to the idea that somebody slightly older may add to the culture rather than detract from it, and bring wisdom and life experience and work experience. And I think every organization nowadays accepts that training and professional development is run of the mill. It's the expectations there. So why would we assume that older people aren't capable of adapting new technologies? Like, here we are on Riverside doing our thing.
Yeah, I know.
We didn't choose not to use this platform because it was too complicated or we're afraid of it. But the software is outstanding. It's very user friendly. We're talented, capable, intelligent people. We can make this work. And, one of the best pieces of advice that I got fairly early on in my career is that you don't have to know the answer to everything, but you have to recognize when you don't know the answer and be smart enough to go and find it. And I think we aren't very capable people. We find solutions to things as mums, as parents, as women. Like, we don't lack capability, and I don't know why people assume that. But maybe we just haven't asserted ourselves quite as much as men have or as younger women have. I think the younger age groups now seem to come with an inbuilt self-confidence that we didn't have back in the day. So I suppose we haven't grown up with that level of self-confidence, and we just need to, I think, take a little bit of ownership for that and assert ourselves and say, you know what, I am capable. Don't assume that I'm not capable. Challenge me and I'm up for it, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think one thing that a lot of women in particular are guilty of is that self-limiting. Oh, I can't, I'm too old, I'm too afraid. And they do self-limit. And I agree with you. Yes. We need to just go for it. And I call myself the retirement rebel because I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone in so many ways since I retired, and rebelled just to try and be authentic and an inspiration for other women to say, look, I get it wrong. I have a cry. Some days are good, some days are bad, but I'm living, and I really want you to somehow be inspired by what I'm doing and what I'm saying and running this podcast. And I want to ask you, when is the last time that you actually felt rebellious or felt like being a rebel? I mean, it sounds to me like you've been a rebel a lot, but when was the last time you felt rebellious?
Well, it's funny. This weekend, one of the big summer festivals is happening here. It's called Electric Picnic. Ordinarily, it's in September. It's a little bit earlier this year. And in 2015, I went to a full-on weekend festival for the first time. And in a way, and why did I go? I went because I went with my friends and I absolutely love music. Love it. And I thought, well, festivals aren't just for the young. Music isn't just for the young. I have ears. If I like it, I'm going to listen to it. And if I can hear it and see it live and have some fun, then I'm going to do that too. So that definitely felt like oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to a festival. And anyway, I went to 5 of them, 5 in a row. And this week, my eldest, my son, he's 20, he's going. And I was thinking to myself, God, it used to be me getting ready to get packed up to go camping to a festival. And why not? Nobody said I couldn't go. I can afford a ticket much easier than the 20-year-olds can afford tickets. So why shouldn't I go? So if there's something you have an itch to do, or somewhere that you'd really like to go, or a show you'd like to go to, or a movie you'd like to go to, just go and do it. So you can be a little rebel in some small way every day if you feel like it. And, it in itself is very empowering. And it's very energizing. And, also I'd be very inspired by my mum, who's 87. And she's like, let's hit the road. Let's go. She'd go on the train to Dublin. She'd go on the bus. She'd go shopping. Like, she never lets age limit her in terms of the things she wants to do. And her vibe, and her mum's vibe was the exact same. She's like, well, as long as I can keep going, I'm going to keep going. And, that has always been really inspiring, strong, independent, I suppose, slightly rebellious women in my world that have inspired me. And I'm hoping that my antics now will inspire my daughter, who's 15.
Yeah, that's it. The importance of having strong role models. And I love the way you say antics, because I think my daughter at first, when I got rid of my home and possessions and things and went on my nomadic adventure, I think she thought they were my antics. She hadn't a clue what I was up to. But I know for a fact that she's very proud now of what I'm doing and how I am inspiring women and the thousands of women that follow me. And I've got a book out called Retirement Rebel, and that's doing really well. And she's forever saying, I met this woman and she's going to buy your book. I met this woman. And that's fills my heart that I know I'm being a strong role model for her to make her rebellious. And I love having you in my Retirement Rebel gang. And thank you so much for talking to me on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And let's uplift. I think we just want to uplift and entertain each other. That's what we're trying to do. So let's do it. Let's go.
And if anybody wants to keep in touch with you or find out about your comedy gigs, where can they find you?
Yes, the best places, I guess, on Instagram, val.troy. All our antics, as I'm now calling them, will be there. And also my website, valtroy.com. I always keep that up to date with whatever is happening. And we've loads of new stuff. Our first show is going to be in the Vicar Rooms in Dalkey on the 5th of October. It's myself, Orla Doherty and Barbara Scully. It's the Madonna Effect Reinvention Stories. So you'll hear all about our collective antics and have a laugh and maybe wet your knickers, but that's up to you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I've loved chatting to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Great to chat.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I learned that there's really is a desire for older women to hear comedy that's celebrating ageing, rather than just regurgitating ageist stereotypes and narratives that we've been hearing for years. Women can laugh at themselves as well as find the positives in how their bodies and their minds and their lives are changing as they age. But there is still a long way to go, and I heard that from our conversation. There isn't yet an equal platform for female comedians, particularly older female comedians. And we need to help that. We need to vote with our feet. We need to go out there and support the older female comedians when they're doing their gigs. Next week, my guest will be Danielle Selwood. She's a pioneering documentary maker, bringing sports and adventure stories of women to the fore. Her film Younger is about a group of older athletes, and it really is a must-see. I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Retirement Rebel Life After 60. I'm truly grateful for your time and your willingness to embark on this journey with me. If today's conversation sparks something within you, or if you've your own rebel story to share, I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out through our social media channels or email, and let's keep the conversation going. Email us on podcast@retirementrebel.co.uk. And remember, if you found value in our time together today, consider sharing this episode with a friend who might also enjoy and benefit from our Retirement Rebel community. Spreading the word helps us grow and continue to challenge the narrative around life after 60. All of our details can be found on retirementrebel.co.uk. Retirement Rebel Life After 60 is written and hosted by me, Siobhan Daniels, and produced by the incredibly talented Matt Cheney. Join me again next week for another episode. Until then, keep embracing your inner rebel and living life to the fullest. Bye for now.